Good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll tell you, one of the dangers in speaking second is that the first guy steals all your thunder. So I won't ask the veterans to stand up, but I will thank you from the bottom of my heart as well. And I see some of my brethren in blue out there from the Air Force, and I know there's some sailors out there. So I ask that you excuse me if my talk is a little slanted toward the Army. You know, it is an honor and a privilege to be here today, and I thank you for inviting me to speak and allowing me this opportunity. You know, it is our opportunity to remember those who have served and are serving today. Oftentimes I've heard Army or military cemeteries called gardens of stone. And if you take the time to look through this garden of stone after the ceremony, you'll see some of those veterans we are honoring from previous wars. Those veterans of places like Gettysburg, Appomattox, the Little Bighorn, the trenches of France and the Argonne. I know that maybe in this audience, those who are still living that we are honoring are seated amongst us. Those fine gentlemen and ladies who may have stormed the beaches of Normandy, fought in Italy and the deserts of North Africa, the cane fields of the Philippines, the rice paddies and jungles of Guam and Okinawa, who later served in Korea and Vietnam, and recently those who fought in places like Panama, El Salvador, Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And today we also remember those who served here close to San Antonio and along the Rio Grande and in the western United States, those proud soldiers called the Buffalo Soldiers. You know, presently our country has been at war for 10 years, and we think we'll remain in an era of persistent conflict for the near future. We're conducting combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, supporting operations in the Philippines. We're responding to natural disasters in places like Haiti, Japan, and Pakistan. U.S. forces are working with partner nations in 61 different countries, while simultaneously supporting families at home, helping wounded warriors recover, and training and equipping for future engagements. So today, as I said, it's only fitting that we pause and honor the memory of all the men and women who have worn the uniform of the United States in the past and today. And representative of these, we honor the Buffalo Soldiers and their contributions in helping to shape our nation. And in doing so, we encourage every individual to learn and remember those Buffalo Soldiers and their values and their courage. If you study the history of the Buffalo Soldiers and their sacrifices and unselfish commitment, you'll see it's exactly what our Army and our country asks from our soldiers today. Their accomplishments reflect the 7 Army values we live by: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. The Buffalo Soldiers display a record of uninterrupted courage, valor, and patriotism to our country. Their exceptional service epitomizes these 7 Army values. The first Army value is loyalty. The Army defines loyalty as bearing true faith and allegiance to the United States Constitution, the military, your unit, and other soldiers. That true faith and allegiance is a matter of believing in and devoting yourself to something or someone higher than you. The Buffalo Soldiers were free men, former slaves, and even some Native Americans. They displayed enormous loyalty and courage, even when their country did not always appropriately reciprocate or acknowledge their loyalty. In the words of one Buffalo Soldier, he said, "We were needed, but we were never wanted." Although the name Buffalo Soldier was not firmly rooted in our country's history until after 1866, the soldiers that came before them and since all honor the memory and heroic act of these great Americans. The Buffalo Soldiers' African-American predecessors displayed unyielding loyalty in America's Revolution. In the Civil War, through the famed 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, they fought, and with these Buffalo Soldiers, the 9th and 10th Cavalry Regiments and 24th and 25th Infantry Regiments fought around here during the Indian Wars. Buffalo Soldiers, as Mr. Murrow said, were part of the Rough Riders that fought with Teddy Roosevelt and charged up San Juan Hill during the Spanish-American War. During that same Spanish-American War, 5 Buffalo soldiers won the Medal of Honor. The Buffalo Soldiers enforced the neutrality laws along the Mexican border. They saw 4 tours of duty in the Philippine Islands and battled Pancho Villa under John Pershing in 1916 along the Mexican border. Thousands of loyal Buffalo soldiers gave their blood, their sweat, their tears, and even their lives to help form this great nation. The second Army value is duty. Today, the Army asks soldiers to fulfill their obligations. Doing your duty means more than carrying out your assigned tasks. Duty means being able to accomplish these tasks as part of a team, or even as an individual, and by carrying out any mission to the best of your ability. Buffalo soldiers displayed the value of duty to their unit, to each other, and to their country. An example of this is a story of Private John Randall of Troop G, 10th United States Cavalry Regiment, who was assigned to escort 2 civilians in September of 1867. Randall and his party were quickly ambushed and overwhelmed by more than 70 Cheyenne Indian warriors. It's reported that the 2 civilians fell in the initial attack, but Private Randall, suffering from a gunshot wound to his shoulder, and almost a dozen other wounds, fought off the Cheyenne, and it's reported that he killed 13 of them. The tribe retreated, and the word spread that Randall fought like a cornered buffalo and displayed unyielding duty and courage. You know, I think in today's term, Private Randall was truly Army strong. The Buffalo soldiers adhered to the value of duty by serving under the harshest conditions, but they had the lowest desertion rates in the United States Army. Buffalo soldier units received 4 campaign citations in the Indian Wars, and additional campaign citations in the Spanish-American War, the Philippine Insurrection, the Mexican Expedition, and the French campaign in World War I. In addition, units tracing their history to the Buffalo Soldier regiments received 5 citations in World War II and 10 in Korea. In the Soldier's Creed today, we pledge to treat others with dignity and respect while expecting others to do the same. The third value of respect is what allows us to appreciate the best in other people, and self-respect is a vital ingredient in this value of respect. Buffalo soldiers not only gave respect to their fellow soldiers, but history shows that even when respect was not always given to them by civilians from other white soldiers or even their own government, they persevered and showed true tenacity and courage. Buffalo soldiers showed great respect not only for our country's allies, but even those that they may have been fighting against. The Buffalo soldiers carried out their duties and in many cases spoke out in support of certain Indian tribes to ensure that the U.S. and local governments honored their treaties and the promises with those various tribes. They received the name Buffalo Soldier because of the respect garnered from their adversaries and fellow citizens as a direct result of their ability to endure long marches, their courage in battle, and courage under fire. The fourth Army value is selfless service. In serving your country, you're doing your duty, loyally without thought of recognition or gain. Put the welfare of the nation, the Army, and your subordinates before your own. Buffalo soldiers have always shown this selfless service. That's why I wanted to be here today, to be able to thank the Buffalo soldiers that are sitting on the podium with me and standing around us, because they are working with youth groups, the churches, and the schools to teach the history of the Buffalo soldiers and to put everything in perspective in terms of service to our country and our community. So I thank you for that. For more than 2 centuries, the veterans of our nations have been willing to serve and sacrifice for our country and the cause they love, more than their own lives. The Buffalo soldiers were no different. In fact, they displayed such selfless service that it's extremely notable because they were denied the rights of full citizenship and equal opportunities that they spent the time and blood to fight for. The next value is honor. Henry O. Flipper was the first African American to graduate from the United States Military Academy, and he showed great honor when faced with unprecedented daily challenges from his peers and his leadership. Flipper, John Alexander, and Charles Young were the first 3 African Americans to graduate from the Military Academy, and they all served as Buffalo soldiers and endured harsh treatment from their peers during that time. Flipper served honorably in the 10th Cavalry. Alexander and Young served in the 9th Cavalry, and they all displayed the quiet pride and honor that all Buffalo soldiers possess. Integrity is the 6th value, and that's doing what's right legally and morally. Even during a time when many locals and former Confederates, as well as soldiers and leaders from other units, made it extremely difficult for them, the Buffalo soldiers patrolled the Rio Grande area and the Mexican border and escorted and protected newly arrived settlers to this region. Despite the harsh conditions of the West and mistreatment from the locals, the Buffalo soldiers and their units showed great integrity while serving this young country. The final Army value is personal courage, facing fear, danger, or adversity. It goes without saying that Buffalo soldiers showed great personal courage, protecting settlers in the West, fighting in the Civil War, the Indian War, the Spanish-American War, even enduring personal, mental, and physical duress of racial segregation, prejudice, and intolerance. The nation's highest military award, the Medal of Honor, was won by more than 20 Buffalo soldiers. This is an outstanding record, and it shows that our Buffalo soldiers displayed great courage under fire and upheld the traditions and values of our Army. Thankfully, our military is different now. Race or gender don't make a difference, but the courage and sacrifice of those who serve does. On Veterans Day, we honor their memory and those brave Americans who came before us, and you, and those who are serving today in harm's way. I want to thank the Buffalo soldiers of Bexar counties and their association for keeping alive the memory of the Buffalo soldiers and for treating us to this event on this Veterans Day. As I finish my speech, I want you to remember that it's night in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's early morning in Korea and the Philippines. There and around the world, our military, tomorrow's veterans, are going on patrols. They're laying ambushes, they're conducting convoys, they're securing the seas and flying to keep our skies safe. I ask you to say a prayer for them. Now, as I speak again throughout America, in small towns and large, those 24 million living veterans are going about their daily lives. Some are working, some are attending ceremonies like this. Some are having cookouts, and unfortunately, some of them are on street corners homeless. But all of those veterans have lived the values we spoke of today. They sacrificed for our nation and our way of life. I ask you all, the next time you see a veteran, please say thank you and shake their hands. It's the least they deserve, but it's all that they want. Thank you.